Hello, our viewers. Welcome to our program, Unique People, on Catholic Television. Unique People is a program that we at CTV bring your way people with unique personalities, very important personalities in the society, people who have worked hard to the growth of our society, the growth of humanity, people who have made a lot of sacrifice to the good and well-being of the human being. Today, we are with a very important personality. One of them, I'm sure you are celebrating by now to know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about our own dearest father, one who is a mentor, one who is a detribalized Nigerian, one who loves people around him, who is an encourager and a father in all ramifications. His Excellency, OBONG Victor ATTAH. You're welcome, sir, to our program.
Thank you very much.
If I begin to introduce you, I may not be able to do that. So please, can you tell our viewers more about yourself?
Well, I'm intrigued by the title of the title that you give this program, Unique People. And I'm wondering what made you consider that OBONG Victor ATTAH is a unique person. But be that as it may, you may be right, and maybe there are a lot of other people who may think so. I remember somebody asking Bing Crosby, what a fantastic voice you have. And he said, I'm just a guy with the lucky gifts of a good voice. I'm just a guy who's been fortunate to be placed in a position where I've been able to do some good for the development of myself, my family, the community I come from, my state, and humanity. And I'm very pleased, very satisfied with that. And more than anything else, I've served my profession very faithfully, which is the profession of architecture. So this OBONG Victor ATTAH you gave me, I always preface it with architect OBONG Victor ATTAH, so that people know that my first love is my profession of architecture and town planning. So that's why I'm a fellow and a past president of Nigerian Institute of Architects. I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, anyway, we cannot also talk about OBONG without talking about his role, because I'm sure he wants to hide that part of him, but that is a very prominent role that we cannot, wave aside. The former governor of Cross River State, Akwa IBOM State, the former governor of Akwa IBOM State, that's who OBONG is. And I remember in the past, sir, when during your time, your name is you were one of the governors that really did your best. That's not to flatter you, and we are saying something that is on record. Like one of the presidential candidates will say, go and verify. So we are not saying something that is not verifiable. You are one of the governors that performed extremely well, under Obasanjo, and that's why you are still respected up till today. And so we cannot talk about the growth and the beauty of Nigeria without mentioning the name OBONG Victor ATTAH. So tell us about your background, growing up. What is it like?
Growing up, it's very difficult to know where to start, but I will try and tell you a bit about my very early childhood, and then maybe primary school level, and then secondary school. That'll tell you a lot about growing up. Early childhood, I'm one of those people they call ancestral governors. I was born in 1938. It was the same year that my father left this country to go and study agriculture in America. 5 years later, he came back as the first Nigerian to get a master's degree in agriculture. And he joined the colonial service and was posted to more plantation in Ibadan. So my very early childhood, when I was 5, 6 years old, was in Ibadan, more plantation. And two things I remember about more plantation. One, we used to see these beautifully clad people in uniform. I'm not sure whether the military or police or whatever, but They ride this heavy motorcycle, which later on in life I came to know was called Royal Enfield. But every time those motorcycles roared through the plantation, the house would shake, the ground would shake. And then soon after that, a lot of explosions. And that's stuck in my mind since I was about 5, 6 years old. But they came there to detonate the unexploded bombs that were dropped during the Second World War. More plantation was large enough that they gathered those bombs there and they used to come and detonate them there. That's one of the things I remember about more plantation. Second was that every morning, 2 bottles of milk would arrive at my mother's door, and fresh squeezed milk from cows. So we had dairy cows even in Ibadan in those days. But of course, you have to pasteurize it, and the way my mother used to pasteurize it was to immerse the bottles in water up to the neck, and then boil the water for a very long time, and it became pasteurized and therefore fit for consumption. And I really thoroughly enjoyed that, because for me, Ovaltine was the thing to drink, and it was always with milk, fresh milk and things like that. So that's my memory of More Plantation. And then primary school, from More Plantation now, the British, is being skeptical about American degrees, decided to send my father to the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture in Trinidad. So, of course, we had to leave More Plantation and went to the village. And in the village, we were in primary school. From what I'm telling you, you can see that my children, my siblings, were split basically into 2 segments. The early ones consisted of 3 of us, my eldest brother, my immediate elder brother, and myself, and 1 girl that died. And then 6 years later came the second set, after my father had returned from America. So I am more than 6 years older than my immediate younger brother. So when we went now to primary school in the village, we were considered, only 3 of us were of school age, the elder ones. And even there, we were considered too young to board, because boarding school, primary school was boarding in those days. But they considered us too young to board, so we put in the boys' quarters of the headmaster's house. And that's where we grew up. We go to the stream like everybody else, fetch firewood, do the things that everybody else, every other child did. And that was in a native authority school, that's NA school, Asutan. And when my father returned 1 year later from Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture, he was now sent to Benin, and we still stayed a bit in the village. Then my father decided we must have education. One critical thing you should know about that time was that subjects were taught, everything was taught in the local language, and you studied English as a subject. Not now that everything is taught in English and you study your own language as a subject. So he was transferred to Benin. From Benin, he went to the Cameroons. From Cameroons, he went somewhere else. So, of course, he said, look, these children cannot learn because they can't learn all these local languages. So he left us at home, and my mother was a school teacher. So we then moved from the village to Uyo. And we were in a place called Practicing School, Uyo. The name is significant because it was attached to a teacher training college. And we were like the guinea pigs, those teachers used to practice. And we therefore had the best teaching because those students wanted to pass as teachers. So they gave us the best teaching ability that they had. And I think a very interesting thing, it's not a secret, but it's just a very interesting thing people should know. The lady called them Kema Chikwe, went to the same primary school as I did in Uyo, the present practicing school Uyo, and she was classmate with my very much younger brother called Albert. And the reason she was there is because her father was the first indigenous principal of the teacher training college. So they all grew up in Uyo. That's why my pet name for her has always been Adiawudo. I call her Adiawudo. So this is something
happy that she's mentioned, her name is mentioned in this interview.
Oh, I'm very glad to mention it because it showed that Nigeria was really integrated. Nigeria was one. I mean, an Igbo person being the principal of Teacher Training College in Uyo, and his children therefore grew up with all Ibibio children and speak the language and so on. Very interesting country it was at that time. So that was the second segment, and interestingly now, my father insisted, he had a driver, he had a cook, but insisted that we, as his children, must do our own house chores. My eldest brother, his responsibility was to make sure that he washed the car and cleaned the car inside and so on. And my immediate elder brother, he must polish his shoes every day before he goes to work. And my responsibility was to clean his room. Sweep and clean his room. Then we go to the stream like everybody else, fetch water. Just, you had to be, and that driver, we didn't call him anything else but sir, because he was a very much older person. And my father made sure that we gave him the respect he deserved. Not today when people treat the people who work for them as though they are no. We had to call him sir. I remember that very much. And my mother was a good cook, was a baker who used to bake bread. And so when we come back from school, we'll help her sell the bread at the motor park like every other child. And so we just grew up like everybody else. We did not have to show that, oh, my father is this, my father is that. No. And that's part of my ground. And from there, I do not, as I speak to you, have full school living certificate, because I was able to pass entrance exam into secondary school from standard 5 rather than standard 6. So I went into...
And at that time, I have to interject here, because at that time, it was well celebrated because it shows the intelligence of that high level of intelligence. So that was why such things were accepted and well celebrated.
Clearly, yes. And then entrance into secondary school was by an entrance exam. And I happened to pass from standard 5, so I didn't have first school living certificate. And I went to Obodel. Then I discovered that Obodel was spending 6 years to do school set. And I said, no, why should I spend 6 years to do school set? So after the first year, I left and went to St. Patrick's College, Calabar, which was, they spent 5 years to do school set. So, and that was 1952. I got into Obodel. 1956, I had finished school set from St. Patrick's College, Calabar. So that is my childhood.
And it's a beautiful one, I must confess.
Thank you.
An enviable one. You know, one of the questions I wanted to ask here is how you have been able to, because anybody seeing you, a man with a big title, OBONG, at the highest echelon of the society. So what inspired you to study architecture? It was one of those things my father said, go and do engineering. Your 2 elder brothers are studying medicine, and so we need an engineer. I said, no, it's not a matter of what you need to. I think engineering is rather rigid, and I like to be creative. I want to study architecture and so on. And architecture was not a known profession at that time, I must say. There was only one school of architecture in Nigeria, and that was in Zaria, the Nigerian College of Arts, Science, and it was not ABU. It was called Nigerian College of Arts, Science, and Technology. You remember, there were 3 of them. The one in Zaria, the one in Ibadan, and the one in Enugu. The one in Zaria had all the professional courses: architecture, engineering, physical education, teacher training, fine arts. Oh, again, I have to mention some names here. Out of fine arts came somebody like Professor Damubeki. You know, Professor that was the Vice Chancellor outside this country, and then Vice Chancellor of Nasarawa University. I met him in school. He's late now. People like Bruce Onabarakbaya, who is held fantastic, is internationally recognized and known as the screen master. He's producing screen. People like Yusuf Grillo, who was involved in that Larukpon train accident that took quite a few of our students in Larukpon. There was a train derailment. The bridge just collapsed.
and injured quite a few. There's a monument in Zaria for those Larukbon students that died. And so they were, and then I cannot forget people like Rewanu Lukman, with whom I played a field hockey. He was a fantastic hockey player. And so quite a few, Professor, what's his name again? One of the celebrated engineers in Nigeria, the man that, I don't know what's.
At this point, we have to go on a short break, and please don't touch the dial. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, we have been here talking with His Excellency Architect OBONG Victor ATTAH. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I think where we broke up was a bit about Nigerian college. And well, let me get a bit nostalgic and remember names like Professor Wojobi, a renowned engineer, was in school with us. Uche Okeke, the artist, he started the Uche Okeke School of Art, and then Demas Nwoko, people like that were all fellow students in Nigerian college with me, and I was very happy. There was a complete integration of Nigeria. But know this, that we were under 200 students in the entire university college at that time. So now the university population is in thousands, but we were only 200 on that campus in Zaria. And I know the principal, because it was called the principal of the college, was an Indian called Professor Lahiri. Yes, and we had, there are quite a few, so many, and I really got back, and when I think back in those days what Nigeria was, a unique country, a country with a lot of promise, a country that you respected one another, regardless of where anybody came from. You just felt you were one nation. It was phenomenal.
Wow. This mention of this part brings me to a sober reflection. But then we still have hope. We still have hope. Your Excellency, please. When you made introduction of yourself, you mentioned your father, and one will easily understand that that man must have been a great mentor to you. But apart from him, are there other people you can point hand at that these are my mentors beside my father?
I don't have any one mentor that mentored me, but there are people that influence certain aspects of my life. When I went to Nigerian College area, I was fresh out of secondary school, and I was one of that's where you can say I was unique because most of the people that came there had worked in the PWD, Public Works Department, which is now called Ministry of Works. Some have worked in railway. Those were the two big people that employed draftsmen and so on. And then two people took me under their wings. One Asa and Peter Mbaronya said, we will teach you even how to draw. We will teach you how to use the felt pen, how to use the graphos pen. We teach you the basics of how to be a draftsman. And they influenced me a lot in my growth in architecture. People like Fola Alade, the late Fola Alade, who became quite high in the Federal Ministry of Works and so on. I think he designed one of the Federal Secretariat complexes and so on. So they influenced me in a lot. And then, so after 3 years of that, I had to go out, work for a time, and then come back. And then it just struck me. It struck me, very strange. We had made maybe 20, 25 of us. By the time we get to the third year, we are down to 12. The others have been weeded out. And by the time you will get to the final year, there'll be about 4 or 5 of you. The others would have been weighted. And I said, are we so bad in this profession that we have to be weighted out like this? Started questioning myself. And then the school, in any case, was approved for the intermediate of the Royal Institute of British Architects. Intermediate. So that means you could not become a fully qualified architect. It was never approved for the finals of the Royal Institute of British Architects, which was the exam we were taking at the time. Then I decided, my curious mind, to do some research, and I found that a lot of those people that were weeded out would go to Britain and do much, much better than the British students. So it isn't that they didn't know what they were doing. I said there must be something wrong with something, it must be a policy situation, which was confirmed. And I fast-tracked to the point where Professor Nyinka Ademi, who was a student in Nigerian College Zaria, junior to me in school at the time, but he became the head of Department of Architecture. And he discovered a British document that said, look, do not qualify Nigerian architects and engineers so that the returnees, British returnees from the war, will find work in the colonies. So that was what was happening, and that was not good enough. So I did something which people thought was, well, it was unusual because first time it happened, I led a student protest against that. I said, there's no way we can come here and spend all this time and not qualify as students. So there was a formal inquiry by the federal government, and the report was that Victor was right, but if he continues to say the British will never allow him to qualify. So they gave me a scholarship to go and study architecture in England, from all places.
Just to shut you up.
And I was fighting the British over what they were doing. So that's how I got to England, and then I met somebody that I got married to, and she also mentored me in when it came to social niceties, and just she was a wonderful woman that I married, and taught me different cultures. She was from the Barbados in the West Indies. She's dead now, you know that. So I have different influences in different aspects of my life.
So now that we have already dabbled into your love life, can you let's how did you meet her? How, you know, and when did you know that there is a connection?
Oh, I was in the School of Arts, and she was in the School of Commerce studying librarianship. Everybody used to think that every West Indian is a nurse, which was a mistaken concept. She was a librarian, and she did specialize in medical librarianship. Worked for an organization when she qualified called Medical Opinion and Review, and then was the librarian for Sterling Winthrop, international librarian for Sterling Winthrop. Every time there was a case against, I remember the case of Pfizer-Hex. There was some product called Pfizer-Hex produced by Sterling Winthrop, and she had to do all the research in the background about so that the defense lawyers would be able to defend the case against that was brought against the company that she worked for. I was in the School of Art, she was in the School of Commerce, but we shared a common dining room, and I just met her in the dining room, and I looked at her and I said, this is somebody that I would like to spend the rest of my life with. And that was the connection.
So, and the marriage lasted for how many years?
47 years.
That was long.
I was hoping that we would make 50, but unfortunately she died before we could make 70. Could make 50. But we were together for 47 years.
May her soul rest in
Amen,
peace.
amen.
I'm sure she is resting in heaven.
A
woman that stood by a man who is almost excellent.
A man with a erratic and troublesome.
So I don't think that woman will not make heaven. And so may God accept her soul.
Amen, amen, amen.
Wow.
And I've since remarried, and I'm quite happy in my new marriage. So
yeah, we thank God. Yes. You continue to enjoy. Who will not enjoy OBONG? So that name OBONG, what does it mean?
It's a title.
The title.
It's just like people senior chief.
Senior chief.
If you like.
Okay, let's look at, you have served in public service, obviously, and what was your driving vision? And you served well, and you are still serving even at retirement, but we're talking about the position you held. And so, what was that thing that was your driving force that made you to like, you must perform your best?
One word, injustice or iniquity. That's what it was. Because the first government job, I was always a private sector person, and I still am till today. The only government job that I have ever done, held, or office that I ever held, is that of being governor for 8 years.